Okay, now let's go to that secondary because this is a big reason why I really liked this class a lot. And I mean, you can see my little M behind me kind of tip off, but uh, it's Burke too. And you've got, I mean, 2 years ago, there is no way anybody would have believed that any one team in the NFL would have been able to draft both Will Johnson and Denzel Burke on the same team. No way. Because they were both ticketed for the first round and possibly even in the top 15 of the draft. Well, Burke had a little bit more of a slide where people just couldn't figure out why he wasn't making plays later in his career that he was making early in his career. You know, day one, true freshman starter, played all 4 years. Still, that's impressive at Ohio State. Well, Johnson, we all know, based on what we've heard, the reason he slipped even to round two is just some of the teams are scared away by his injury situation, whether or not he's really 100% and whether he's going to be able to be that guy. But even so, our lads still, knowing all the information, we still had him ranked as the number 2 corner in the draft, day one starter. But it only, it just must have been one of those deals that happens every draft where some players just happen to slip through because the whispers about things like injuries or drugs or off the field this and they just slide. And then 2 or 3 years later, you realize, well, that was a bunch of malarkey. That team who got lucky and I think that's Will Johnson all day long. The dude is a stud. And yes, no question, if the kid's got some injury issues, anything can happen. You can end up just like a journeyman. But to get him in round 2, Arizona got the steal of the draft. This kid, if healthy, is you're looking at one of the best corners in the league. And then again, to be able to come back in round 5 to get Burke was also just a great move.
Yeah, the Cardinals just they like drafting cornerbacks too. In 3 drafts under Monty Ossenfort, they've drafted 7 cornerbacks. They've drafted 2 this year, 3 last year. But you look at the room, and it felt unnecessary, especially the Burke pick later in the draft. But the news that came out a couple of weeks ago kind of clarified kind of why they went that route, and that's with Sean Murphy-Bunting. They signed him last year, veteran guy. Had a decent year, struggled a little bit early on, but decent year, like quality NFL starter, not high end. He was placed on the non-football injury list, and he's out for the year. He had a knee injury of some sort and needed surgery. So he's out of the picture for this year. And as it was, with Murphy-Bunting in there, you've got Garrett Williams, who's a stud at the slot. They had Star Thomas, who they really like, and last year's second-round pick, Max Melton. Adding Will Johnson to that group made it so somebody, you look at a guy probably like Thomas, and you were going to have to drop him to a solely special teams role, or he would be trade bait potentially because you just got too many cornerbacks in the room that you can keep. Now with Murphy-Bunting out for the year, currently the top 3, at least in OTAs and minicamp, are the 3 that figure to be. So you've got Star Thomas, you've got Max Melton, last year's second-round pick, and Garrett Williams in the slot. And at very minimum, Will Johnson is going to be that 4th guy. And last year they rotated Melton, Thomas, and Murphy-Bunting fairly consistently. Even Melton, who was number 4 of the cornerback rotation, played half the snaps and played them almost all on the boundary. So he would either come in for Murphy-Bunting or come in for Thomas. And now Johnson really has a shot. Like he has the tougher route, but he has a higher talent level to be able to be kind of quarterback one. That's like I say, Cody Simon has an easier route to be an every down starter. Will Johnson has the higher talent, but also has that door wide open because you could see him, being their cornerback one if he's healthy this offseason. And I will say this, that is the one concern about him. He slipped because of the long-term concerns with his knee. And that was frustrating to him because, my knee's fine. My knee feels good. The issue wasn't how he feels now. It's how some team doctors are like, his knee's not going to last 4 years. It's degenerative. But there is an injury concern because over the last 3 years, Johnson has dealt with the knee injury, the shoulder injury, the foot injury, and then in the pre-draft training had the hamstring come up, which caused him to not work on his pro day. And he sat out, he's had a tight hamstring in camp as well. And so while he did get work on 2 out of the 3 days in minicamp, they have been managing his workload, but hamstrings are tricky. So that is the one thing to look at with him. And I will say this, as much as I like Will Johnson as a player, my history with the Cardinals, I follow the Cardinals I will say this. Yeah. If the Cardinals are the ones making the exception for him, they're saying we're right and the league's wrong, yeah. There is a thing in the pit of my stomach that says they're not right.
I know.
They're not right.
That's what happens to
the talent of Johnson, though.
Yeah.
Even if he plays at a high level, and I guess that's where the risk comes in. You pick him at number 47, and it is a second-round pick. If you get 4 years and that's it, you don't feel as bad about it. So if something happens down the line.
Yeah, I didn't think that was again, I don't think it was a knock on the teams not taking him. I think it was justifiable, but it was one of those things where, well, whoever does get him in round 2 is going to be the team that is going to have a great chance of being able to, look at this as just a tremendous get if he can stay healthy. And nowadays with medicine the way that it is, doctors can say anything they want about his knee ain't going to last, but we all know that the way things are going nowadays, nobody knows. So, but like you said, it's not a first round draft pick. So it is not the biggest deal in the world if you are at least given 4 good years out of a top player like that. All right, Burke, what have you found out from the Cardinals of what really happened to him and why he turned into a 5th round guy instead of a 1st round guy, which is where he was headed a couple of years ago?
Oh, it's interesting because no one they didn't even talk about him like, oh, we couldn't believe that we got him in the 5th round. Mm-hmm. It seemed to be that was kind of the general consensus. But what they did like was the experience. They liked the experience. They liked the athleticism. He does have good tape, as long with some questionable. But he's destined as a rookie to play special teams, which he does. He does have special teams experience from his time at Ohio State too. But this year, he's destined to be kind of the back of the cornerback rotation, but as cornerback 5. He's likely gonna bump Keitrell Clark off the roster, who they had the last couple of years, who was another 5th round pick 2 years ago out of Louisville, a guy that Jonathan Gannon really liked. But it appears that his path to the roster is on 4th down and on kickoffs this year. Okay. We'll see what goes from there. But that's kind of the fun part of what the Cardinals have done with their defensive depth. That cornerback room, really inexperienced in terms of the youth. Start Thomas going into year 3, Garrett Williams into year 3 are the senior members of the guys that are actually competing for roles and things like that.
Crawford, I know he's a 7th rounder, but did they make any sort of statement on particularly why they like him?
Well, what they really like about him is the athleticism and the elite special teams play. And he was one of my favorite picks in terms of like a 7th round pick. Most 7th round picks, I'm like, yeah, whatever. But when you get a guy who has such, and you know what his ceiling is, he played at Texas, and what is he at Texas? He wasn't starter material at Texas. If you're not starter material at one of those big schools, you're probably never going to be a starter in the NFL. But then he goes to Nevada. He plays safety. He's a starter, but he's still elite on special teams. He logged over 1,000 special team snaps in his career. He kind of did a little bit of everything, and I think that's kind of where they have him pegged. Now, is a roster spot guaranteed for him? No, because they've got their 2 starters at safety, Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson, they're locks. Last year's 4th round pick, Rabbit Taylor Demerson, a guy who they like on special teams, and 2 is that next up. And I think they view him I believe they anticipate him being a starter after Jalen contracts expires next year. And so Crawford will be battling with with other special teams guys like Joey Blunt, who's been his core special teamer for the last 2 years, extensive experience on the special team. So he's going to be battling for that fourth safety / special teams core guy role. Whether he makes the team or is on the practice squad, that's kind of the role he's destined for this year.